Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I've got a video for you about Fortnite. Not about the specific match that I'm playing, or about a new character, or about a new season, but rather about the entire game itself and why it's so successful. The general opinion of the gaming community is that desperate Epic Games decided to copy PUBG and tack it onto their failing PvE Zombies game as a last-ditch effort to save the studio from bankruptcy. And while there definitely is some truth to that, and Fortnite was a last-ditch effort, I disagree on this being accidental. I think that there were lots of deliberate and brilliant choices that allowed for the creation of what is currently the most successful game on the planet, and I think that if they had made these choices and maybe gone with regular multiplayer instead of Battle Royale or even a totally new type of game, it would have been almost as successful. Battle Royale is just #1 right now. So today's video is 7 brilliant choices that Epic Games made that made Fortnite the biggest success ever. And we're going to start off with #1, and that's aesthetics. We're not talking about graphics, which is how high a resolution and how high a frame rate and how crazy your anti-aliasing can get, but just aesthetics, the overall art style, the look of the game, the colors, the feel, the outlines, those kind of things. And the aesthetics were brilliantly chosen because they're purposely designed to be very broadly appealing. If you look at the spectrum of aesthetics in video games, you tend to see on one side really cutesy games like Minecraft and Splatoon and Mario, and then all the way on the other end of the spectrum you see really hardcore games like Doom and Call of Duty Zombies and Agony and really like grim dark kind of things, and those are made for different types of gamers, generally speaking children and adults. However, as a recent trend, game developers have learned that if you position a game nearly in the middle, you can appeal to both sides at once. Case in point, Overwatch. Overwatch is an adult game in the sense that most of the characters are adult and it's hardcore and it's competitive, but the art style and the animation is a little bit cartoony, anime-y, most people would say, bloodless for the most part, and Fortnite does a similar thing. Fortnite is about a group of adults that parachute onto an island and murder each other with a variety of different weapons, but it's all sort of Looney Tunes in a way. It's not really bloody or violent or disgusting, and this is done so that the game can be both appealing to kids in that it's not scary to them and it resembles the cartoons that they're watching, and more importantly than that, it's acceptable to their parents. When they come in and check on little Timmy No Thumbs to see what game he's playing, he's not chainsawing people with Doom. Instead, he's just running around building bases and shooting at people with cartoon-looking weapons. However, the game is positioned in a way such that it's not so baby and so cartoony that adults and teenagers lose interest in it. It's still appealing to them, it's still mature in a way, and for the most of them, I think it just feels like a lighthearted game, again, like Overwatch. Overwatch does this better than just about any other game on the planet, except of course Fortnite, and the brilliance of this is you just appeal to both groups at once. Why build a game that has to choose between younger or older when you can just take them both? The second brilliant choice is, again, aesthetics, but this time the choice to keep the aesthetics and graphics very simple. Fortnite is not a graphically advanced game. The game is cel-shaded, it's cartoony, it uses simple textures and simple shaders and simple lighting, and this means that it doesn't need nearly the hardware horsepower to run it as an advanced game like Battlefield or PUBG. The game engine, therefore, doesn't have to render really complicated things like subsurface scattering on skin or volumetric lighting and fog, really like hot 4K textures on trees, or anti-aliasing or stability. Instead, that extra power can just be put toward resolution or frame rate or just general game stability or render distance and things like that. This also makes the game very easy to run on consoles, which are inherently not as powerful as PC. But it also, and this is most important here, means that you can play Fortnite on almost every PC. You don't have to have a monster gaming rig like you do with PUBG or Battlefield or COD. You can just boot it up on kind of an old crappy PC, and as long as you don't mind playing on low or medium or playing with your resolution a bit, the game will run fine, so you don't have to buy the latest and greatest hardware to play Fortnite. The every PC strategy is what League of Legends did almost 8 years ago now, and that's what helped explode the game into into popularity. The graphics in League of Legends got more advanced over time, but at least when it launched, it was a game that you could literally play on a potato computer and do just about as well as somebody that had a nice computer, which is exactly what Fortnite wanted to emulate. They wanted it to be accessible for every single PC gamer, and since now we have several iterations of the PlayStation and Xbox, that also means if you don't have an Xbox One X and you just have a regular, it runs fine on the regular too. So once again, an extremely broad appeal. Why choose just the rich gamers with the expensive computers or the poor gamers that are playing on mobile or Nintendo Switch when you could just have them all? The third brilliant thing they did is something that I almost couldn't imagine them doing any other way because it's Epic Games, and that's that they chose to use an in-house engine. Epic Games made the Unreal Engine, which is what Fortnite runs on, and also PUBG, and the Unreal Engine is one of the most popular engines in the world, so a ton of games that you play also run on the Unreal Engine. And prior to making Fortnite, Epic Games' bread and butter income was working on their engine. Previously, they would sell it or license it, then it went kind of free, and they decided they would do free, but they would also sell assets that were pre-made. Well, that's how PUBG kind of came to be. And they would also be open for business to charge other developers consulting fees when any other developer wanted to use the Unreal Engine for their project. And most developers do not build their own engines. Very, very few major games that you play had engines that were built by the development team. At some point in making the game, the development team kind of had an idea of what they wanted and needed, and they looked at a list of engines, and they decided to pay to license an engine from some other company, because an engine is a big, complicated monster of math that you really don't want to make on your own. However, since Epic Games makes their own engine, they didn't have to pay those fees, and it was really easy for them to just pull in their own, but they also have a history of working with their own engine. They've had a history of consulting and helping other companies solve problems with their engine and develop new technologies for their engine and improve on it. It's the most common engine on the planet. It's the easiest engine to hire people to work on. So all of the development costs, consulting fees, time, optimization, and all the other problems that other developers would have just been completely thrown out the window. Epic Games are literally the masters of their own engine, and they can do anything with it. If Epic wants to add some crazy impossible physics or gravity or something to their game, they don't have to like, oh man, we need like 6 months to do the math on this and we need to call this other department and budget these things. No, they are the people that make the engine, so they can just make it and do it and go, and it's so much faster than any other company can. Part 4, which ties into 1, 2, and 3, all of these tend to flow together today, is that with the cartoon looks and the simple graphics and the in-house engine, that means that adding new content is super easy. Adding content to Fortnite is easier than any other game on the planet as far as I'm aware. As an example, let's imagine that you play a lot of Rainbow Six Siege, which is a fantastic game, and Rainbow Six Siege adds a new operator, and that operator has a new fancy gun. In order to do this, they have to model the person, rig the model, scale the height, they have to layer the skin, layer his clothes, they have to put in a bunch of coding to see how he's going to look in different light scenarios. We're going to do different things for his fabric and the hair that blows in the wind, and make sure the eyes are realistic and they track things, and we have to do subsurface scattering for the skin and skin pores, and then we have to model the whole gun and how light reflects off the gun, and then we have to make sure that the gun has some grit and some like scratches on it so that it reflects differently, and then we make sure that the field of view rendering issue with the gun and how it renders in first versus third is fine, and that all the parts move and the smoke comes out. That's a lot of work. That's why sometimes it's so slow to get new content on other games. When Fortnite adds a gun, since it's cartoony and simple looking and the graphics don't have to be complex and it's the engine makers that are doing it, well, they model it, they add a simple texture to it, they can add a little sound, maybe a little smoke, and bada bing, it's ready. Of course, there's a balancing pass, but they can add content so insanely fast. And not just new guns, but new skins. They can update their own map, they can add new items, they can change the physics, they can do completely new modes, they can do things faster that no other studio can because of choices 1, 2, and 3, which with number 4, that means that Epic Games has pumped out more content faster than any other game company on the planet ever has in the history of ever, as far as I'm aware. And this content flood has literally spoiled gamers, myself included, because it's fun, it's great, it's what we want, we enjoy it, and other game companies couldn't keep up if they wanted to for technical regions. For comparison, Call of Duty could throw like $100 million at their game and their developers and their outsourcing studios, and I don't know if they could keep up with Fortnite's simple addition of skins and guns, because it's so much more complex for other studios to do this. And when I talk to other developers, when I travel around, and when I don't know, I'm in the gaming industry now, I guess, and people talk to me, other developers aren't always looking to kill Fortnite. They're not always worried about the money that Epic Games makes. They're not worried that Epic is #1 and their game is number 4, 8, or whatever. What scares them the most is how fast Epic can update their game and release content because they can't imitate it. Moving on to number 5, the game is crossplay compatible. This is one of the first games on the planet to allow full crossplay. There were some smaller, less popular games that did this in the past, I'm aware, but this is by far the biggest, most popular, and most broadly recognized crossplay game on the market, and you can play crossplay with all your friends anywhere except for Sony. Sony's kind of a standout on this. They're kind of being butts about it, but this was just a pipe dream until very recently. Gamers always wanted, well, console versus PC. You know, we both have Battlefield, my friend plays on Xbox, and I have a PC, why can't we play together? The game is the same, the graphics don't matter, and because Epic hosts all of this on their own servers, and because the game is simpler than Battlefield, they just decided, why not make this pipe dream a reality? We can just do this as long as we make sure all the inputs are the same. And allowing for crossplay between PC and Switch and Xbox and mobile and all these different things allowed for this game to have insane social growth because friends were never limited by systems. I don't know how many of you have friends that play games and a new console will come out and one of you will get an Xbox and the other one thinks the PlayStation is better, and then you can't play with each other. Or you get that one friend that graduates to the PC master race and he doesn't want to play console games. Or you have a friend that's just on hard times and he doesn't have a proper gaming system, but he likes playing his mobile games. Well, you don't have to exclude those people now. You can just bring them in and play, which creates a lot of organic growth for the game. And it's so popular that gamers want this to be standard now. Again, very, very wide appeal. That's sort of the story of today's episode. Number 6 is a unique business position. Fortnite was one of the first new games in a very long time to not have loot boxes. You may remember about 1 year ago, every game was loot box. Every game would come out free to play with loot boxes, $50 with loot boxes, $20 with loot boxes, loot boxes, loot boxes, loot boxes all over the world. This may not have been a brilliant decision by Epic as a necessary one because at the time, and even still, there are looming legal issues with loot boxes. It could potentially become illegal in China, in the European Union, there are United States, there are specific states in the United States that are looking at banning them. So most game companies are, as of right now, trying to kind of scoot back away from the loot boxes, but Epic did it first, or first in a long time. They went with a free-to-play model with cosmetics, just like League of Legends did several years back. League of Legends is moving more toward loot boxes now, yay them, but they decided to copy that model, and it was a smart decision because anybody can install the game and play free. You get all the characters, all the advantages, everything. You don't have to pay any money. And they decided to gamble the fate of their entire company on people wanting to pay real money for skins. Most game companies wouldn't take that big a gamble when all the analytics, all the marketing data, all the everything said that gamers want to spend money on loot boxes, but the people at Epic were like, you know, we just think that they would like to know how much they're paying for and just, you know, get the thing that they would pay for. That little bit of common sense is obvious to us, but when you work in a corporate environment and you have 1,000 meetings and a giant analytic table and 15 accountants all trying to make their inputs on minutiae of decisions and group meetings and groupthink, these sort of things do get lost, just like The Last Jedi. You can see what happened there. But making the game free to play, of course, exploded popularity, but with no exploitive loot boxes, the game grew even more popular and people were just happy to pay for it, which is, or was at the time, a very unique business position. Every other game is trying to get back on that train now. And finally, this is one that we talked about in a previous video, but is still relevant here. Early access. Fortnite on console is an early access game. It is still not out of alpha, I think, technically. Maybe it's in beta, but it's not 1.0 release, believe it or not. Fortnite specifically positions itself as an early access game because it can update faster, cheaper, and more frequently than other titles on consoles and on mobile. For example, if you're a Halo player and 343 Industries wants to drop a big content package for Halo, well, they have to make it all, and then they have to pass certification with Microsoft like 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and then they pay some big expensive fee, and then they upload it, and then Microsoft distributes it. Well, both Microsoft and Sony saw the growth of these early access games like PUBG, and Steam Greenlight was basically all of Steam is almost early access now, but these games would explode and become very popular. However, their consoles weren't really set up, especially the update process, to support these kind of things, so they added a new system just for early access games. They have an easier certification process, a faster certification process, a cheaper update cost, and an overall easier update and distribution method. So while big game companies had to pay a lot of money to update their game, like Call of Duty or Battlefield, Fortnite can just crank updates out on console like crazy at no cost whatsoever. This definitely takes advantage of the system. Or is it proving that the system was inherently broken to begin with? We're not sure, but it allowed them to keep pumping out that content and become popular. So because of these reasons, I don't think that Fortnite's success is purely by accident. I think that this, at least a lot of it, was planned and designed to be as broadly appealing as possible. A lot of smart choices were made, which allowed for the creation of the most widely appealing game debatably ever made, at least right now. So I hope you learned something new and unique for this video. It was very positive in praising Fortnite. Yes, of course, the game has flaws, but I just didn't think that Epic got as much credit as they deserve for their smart positioning of Fortnite on the gaming map. They've set themselves up very, very well for success, and I think they could have done a non-Battle Royale game with these same parameters and been just as successful. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.